Welcome, dear listeners, to History with Herodotus, where we embark on a journey through the annals of time, uncovering the secrets and stories that have shaped our world. Today, we find ourselves on the battle-scarred fields of northern France, where one of the most pivotal and devastating conflicts of the 20th century unfolded. The Battle of the Somme. This cataclysmic event, which would claim the lives of over 1 million soldiers, has become an indelible mark on the psyche of humanity, a testament to the enduring horrors of war. As we delve into the origins of this fateful battle, let us transport ourselves to the summer of 1914, when the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo sparked a chain reaction of events that would eventually lead to the outbreak of World War. On June 28, 1914, the Archduke's motorcade navigated the winding streets of Sarajevo, where a Gavrilo Princip, a young Bosnian, served national. The echoes of that fateful shot still resonate through history as the complex web of alliances and rivalries between European powers began to unravel. In the months that followed, the great powers of Europe mobilized for war, their armies massing along the borders like storm clouds gathering on the horizon. On August 4, 1914, Germany declared war on Belgium, and Britain, bound by treaty to defend Belgian neutrality, declared war on Germany. The stage was set for a conflict that would engulf the continent, pitting the Allied powers of France, Britain, and Russia against the Central Powers of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. As the war spread across Europe, the Western Front became a stalemate, with both sides dug in along the trenches that stretched from the North Sea to the Swiss border. The town of Albert, with its imposing cathedral and picturesque streets, lay nestled in the heart of the Somme region, a tranquil oasis amidst the chaos of war. However, this tranquility was short-lived, as the strategic importance of the Somme Valley soon made it a focal point for military operations. On December 19, 1915, General Douglas Haig, the newly appointed commander of the British Expeditionary Force, met with General Joseph Joffre, the French commander-in-chief, to discuss plans for a joint offensive in the Somme region. The objective was to break through the German lines and relieve pressure on the French army at Verdun, which had been under siege since February 1916. As the winter of 1915 to 1916 gave way to spring, the British and French armies began to prepare for the impending battle. On January 19, 1916, General Haig and General Joffre finalized their plans for a coordinated attack along the Western Front, with the Somme region designated as the primary theater of operations. The stage was set for one of the most brutal battles in human history, as the armies of Europe clashed on the battlefields of the Somme. On June 24, 1916, the British artillery launched a 7-day bombardment of German positions in preparation for the impending infantry assault. The earth shook beneath the feet of the soldiers as the guns roared to life, unleashing a maelstrom of steel and fire upon the German trenches. The fate of empires and the lives of millions hung in the balance as the armies of Europe stood poised on the threshold of this cataclysmic event. And so, dear listeners, as we conclude our examination of the origins of the Battle of the Somme, we find ourselves poised on the cusp of a new era, one in which the brutal realities of modern warfare would be unleashed upon the world. Join me, if you will, as we venture into the very epicenter of this cataclysmic event and uncover the stories that have become etched into the annals of history. Welcome back to History with Herodotus, where we continue our journey through the annals of time, uncovering the secrets and stories that have shaped our world. On July 1, 1916, the British infantry launched a massive assault on the German lines, advancing across no man's land in waves. The earth trembled beneath their feet as the guns fell silent, and the eerie quiet was shattered by the rattle of machine guns and the screams of the wounded. The Germans, entrenched behind barbed wire and fortified bunkers, unleashed a hail of bullets upon the advancing troops, cutting them down like wheat before a scythe. As the day wore on, the British suffered catastrophic losses, with over 57,000 casualties, including more than 19,000 killed. The French, attacking to the south, fared slightly better, but still suffered heavily. Despite these devastating losses, General Haig remained resolute, convinced that the Germans were on the brink of collapse. In the days and weeks that followed, the battle raged on, with both sides trading blows and suffering horrific casualties. The British introduced new tactics, including the use of tanks, which made their debut on September 15, 1916, near the village of Flers. These lumbering behemoths, prone to breakdowns and vulnerable to enemy fire, nevertheless provided a glimmer of hope for the beleaguered infantry. As the autumn rains set in, the battlefield became a quagmire, with mud and blood mingling in a ghastly embrace. The stench of death hung heavy over the trenches, where soldiers on both sides endured unimaginable hardships, from lice and rats to trench foot and shell shock. The Somme had become a charnel house, a place where humanity was reduced to its most basic and brutal elements. Despite the appalling conditions, the battle continued, with the British and French pushing forward inch by inch. On November 18, 1916, the British launched a final assault on the village of Beaumont-Hamel, which had been a thorn in their side throughout the campaign. The attack was a success, but at a terrible cost: over 10,000 casualties in a single day. As the Battle of the Somme drew to a close, the world was left to ponder the staggering toll. Over 1 million soldiers killed or wounded, entire villages reduced to rubble, and a generation of young men lost forever. The battle had been a clash of titans, a struggle between empires that would shape the course of history for decades to come. And so, dear listeners, as we conclude our examination of the Battle of the Somme, we find ourselves reflecting on the human cost of war and the enduring legacy of this cataclysmic event. Join me, if you will, as we venture into the post-war era, where the survivors of the Somme would struggle to come to terms with their experiences, and the world would grapple with the consequences of this devastating conflict. Welcome back to History with Herodotus, where we continue our journey through the annals of time, uncovering the secrets and stories that have shaped our world. As we move beyond the Battle of the Somme, we find ourselves in the uncharted territory of its aftermath, where the survivors would struggle to come to terms with their experiences, and the world would grapple with the consequences of this devastating conflict. The battle's end, on November 18, 1916, did not bring immediate relief. The trenches were still filled with the stench of death, and the landscape was forever scarred by the craters and barbed wire that had become synonymous with the Somme. As the winter of 1916-1917 set in, the soldiers on both sides huddled in their muddy trenches, trying to survive the harsh conditions. The psychological toll of the battle began to manifest, with many soldiers suffering from what would later be known as post-traumatic stress disorder. In the years that followed, the world struggled to come to terms with the scale of the devastation. The Battle of the Somme had been a clash of titans, with over 1 million soldiers killed or wounded, and entire villages reduced to rubble. The human cost was staggering, with families torn apart by grief and communities shattered by loss. The battle had also marked a turning point in the war, as the introduction of new technologies like tanks and air power began to shift the balance of power on the battlefield. As the war finally drew to a close in 1918, the survivors of the Somme returned home to a world that was forever changed. Many struggled to adjust to civilian life, haunted by the memories of what they had witnessed on the battlefields of France. The British government established the Imperial War Graves Commission to care for the graves of the fallen, and the famous war poet Wilfred Owen wrote about the horrors he had experienced during the battle. The legacy of the Battle of the Somme can be seen in the cemeteries that dot the French countryside, where row upon row of white headstones bear witness to the sacrifice of a generation. The battle also led to significant changes in the way that war was fought. With the introduction of new technologies and tactics, that would shape the course of modern warfare. As the world moved into the 20th century, the Battle of the Somme remained a powerful reminder of the devastating consequences of conflict, and the need for nations to work towards peace and reconciliation. As we reflect on the aftermath of the Battle of the Somme, we are reminded of the words of the German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, who wrote that war makes the state become a beast. The battle had indeed unleashed a beast upon the world, one that would take decades to tame. And yet, even in the midst of such devastation, there were glimmers of hope. Hope that one day, nations would find a way to resolve their differences without resorting to violence, and that the sacrifices of the Somme would not be in vain. And so, dear listeners, as we conclude our journey through the Battle of the Somme, we are left with a profound sense of respect for those who fought and died on its battlefields, and a deep appreciation for the complexities and challenges of human conflict. Join me next time on History with Herodotus, as we explore more stories from the annals of time, and uncover the secrets that have shaped our world. That's all for today's History with Herodotus. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, remember that to understand the present, we must first understand the past.